number one. Number two was Kevin McCann of CNC called me Friday afternoon and asked that to be added, so we added that also. So is there anybody here to talk about anything that's not on the list? Because we always ask that before we start. Okay. There being none, number one, this is a carryover from the meeting I was out sick at. It was regarding the permission of Bow Pioneers Snowmobile Club to use trails on town-owned property. David, I understand you got an email update from the state on that. Is that right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, from the Bureau of Trails, and I did get a copy of all the permissions, names, numbers, and references to the trails. Yes, and we got something from the Bureau of Trails that said everything looks in order except for town permission and then the school district as well.
All right. And so I understand because Mike and I were invited to meet with the Bureau of Trails this morning. And Alexa, what was the gentleman's name?
Is it on there?
Oh, maybe.
Craig Rennie.
What's that?
Craig Rennie.
Yeah.
The head of the.
Used to be a DES,
Used to be a DES.
Yeah, all right. There we go. I knew him from DES and my DOT did.
I knew there's always a reason we have Sandy here.
And he complimented Sandy on you helped them. You pointed out some stuff on their website that was out of date or a link. So he complimented you on it. So I understand from that. And then Mike just handed me the copy of the email. There's 3 trails that would be closed. 1, because the landowner wants it closed, and 2, because they're awaiting answer. So the email from, this is the one you received, Dave, it's 3:56 today.
Yeah.
Talks about that the Bureau of Trails has this update, but they're not going to approve them until the town approves, because town's one of the landowners that hasn't done approval yet. And then I don't know the answers, maybe one of you do. I don't know if the school district approved their trails yet. Is that, anybody know?
I'm not sure.
I think the school board has a meeting this week, but I don't know that it's on the
All
agenda.
right, so that would have to be approved also. And then once the school in the town had that approved, then, as I understand it, the Bureau of Trails would then initiate reimbursing the Bow Pioneers for the expenses on the winter maintenance of the trails, which is growing. They did bring up issues because they had received a lot of calls from people that were concerned about the trails. And one issue was a post on Facebook. And so Mike and I asked them, when they did respond, to include that with respect to discipline, which was included in the email, because as I understand it, Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong. So if officers of the Snowmobile Club don't conduct themselves according to the ethics policy of the state Snowmobile Association and Bureau of Trails, then they can be sanctioned or removed. And if the club doesn't respond to issues to maintain good relations with landowners, then the state can go ahead and just pull all funding for the Snowmobile Club, which would then terminate essentially that club, because that's how they operate. And so I'd asked her to include that in there, so it was a matter of record. I appreciated it going over to meet with them, because we were getting a lot of people coming in and telling us what they understood the Bureau of Trails was telling them. I had a phone call, Bureau of Trails 2 or 3 weeks ago, heard one thing. And so we wanted to clarify, and they invited us over there. And I'll just give you a couple notes. I took a picture of my notes, so bear with me. So on the insurance, because I'm not a big Facebook follower, but I understand that there's a lot of comments out there on Facebook. But the insurance the state has is if you're on the list and it's a designated trail, then the state has it's a secondary liability insurance. So if somebody got hurt on your property, it would be covered. It's secondary because the state statute says nobody can sue you if you let them use your trail for injury anyway. Now, we had some people that emailed, I think the board got an email, I don't know how many days ago, about some damaged trees. That's covered not by that state insurance, but by the snowmobile club's liability insurance, because it's property damage at that point. So that gets resolved out. One of the other things they clarified is that some people called in and asked, am I on the list? And one woman who I had met previously about trail issues had called in and was told she's not on the list. What we clarified, we understood they had a list with a name on it. What they meant was they hadn't approved the list yet. So until the list is approved, no one's on the list to be covered by the secondary supplemental insurance policy. And that, so they were not going to answer to you that you're on the approved list until they approve the list. They can't approve the list until the town approves use of the trails that are owned by town, and the school district to that extent approves that. So that's what I was able to find out, and I give the rest of the selectmen to give their comments before we open it up for that more discussion. And you're the only after that.
When you're referring to the list, is that the list that was sent to our email today?
No, there's a list that was sent over to Bureau of Trails some time ago, according to Alexa from Bureau of Trails. That list had a lot of people, most of the people's names on it, but it's not an approved list until everybody's approved, and the town hasn't given approval yet. And I don't think the school has either. Plus, the list that you have there, Angela, is updated, I believe, as of today, was represented to us by the Bureau of Trails.
Submitted by the Snowmobile Club?
Yeah, through the Bureau of Trails.
Because there's a lot of pertinent information that's missing.
I'm only going by what the Bureau of Trails told us, and that's what their email says, what they wanted for information and what they required.
Okay.
So there's the columns, Angela, that didn't make it. What's the last column?
The last column is trail ID.
Okay, so it wasn't nice, sometimes it'll throw.
Yeah, no, and I definitely
Yeah.
searched
Okay.
something right on my phone, I didn't print it out, but I was looking for maybe.
Great pages.
I didn't see any, but this is the kind of list that the club has submitted to the state for at least 5 years, that they did so, it was a false document. It wasn't accurate, it wasn't true for at least 5 years. And they did so to receive state funds fraudulently. So this is the list that this board is supposed to trust when it's missing pertinent information like, I don't know, the date these landowners were contacted, by whom, how permission was granted, verbally or written, for how long, is it 1 year, 5 years, indefinitely? This is not sufficient for me to trust that it's accurate.
So in talking with Bureau of Trails, they did bring up that since this came to light in Bow, this isn't an issue that's limited to Bow as far as how snowmobile clubs across the state are updating their records. The Bow Pioneers lack or failure to keep up to date with property sales. This is an issue that is all over the state with snowmobile clubs. And in us, Mike and I, Michael, correct me, talking to the Bureau of Trails, after they get through the winter, they're working on trying to revise and amend this to help clubs, because they realize so many clubs have been, when they get verbal from somebody forever, that's what they were doing. Now, the information you're talking about, Angela, the Board of Trails says clubs are supposed to keep that information on their records. So when the Bureau of Trail comes to do an audit, they see that paperwork. It's not required to be submitted, nor do the Bureau of Trails want it submitted to them. They just want a list of homeowners that gave approval. They want a list of the trails, the addresses, and the lot and block numbers. So all that I understand is that in order for the Bureau of Trails to say the Pioneers are in compliance, they're in compliance with this list as soon as the town and the school properties, the school district say that the trails can be used for winter use. Now, the town of Bow, as far as I know, and Dave would correct me, doesn't have any of its own separate regulations. But in talking with Alexa and
Great.
what was his name? Craig, sorry about that, Craig. This is what they wanted, and I said, okay, well, can you confirm that? So when people come, Mike asked them if one of them would come, and so you could hear it direct from them. And they said, well, if we do that, we're not staffed enough to go around and do every town, so we don't want to go down that road. So they left it to us. So I said, okay, can you send an email? And so they sent that email. And then I said, well, this is a chicken before the egg. The town, we have a lot of people concerned that don't want the town to approve use of the town portions of land until the Bureau of Trails approves the list. And they said, we're not approving the list until the town says it's okay to go on the property. And that includes the school district, which Select Board has no control over that. So, I mean, I know Mike, and a few of the others got dozens of calls from people and messages from people that want to know why the trails are closed, why the trails are not groomed. And we understand, at least I understand, I want to speak for the board. You know, all sides, it's not two sides, there's several sides to the whole trail issue. But that's another thing is people have been posting on Facebook, oh, the trails are closed. No, to be clear, if you're a snowmobiler and you're relying on the snowmobile club to get you permission to drive on other people's lands, if you do it without that, getting at those approvals yourself, you're trespassing. If you're out cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or walking on their trails, it's not doesn't fall under the same restriction as the approval by the Bureau of Trails for snow grooming. And that approval, as explained to us by the Bureau of Trails, is because they want to promote snowmobiling in New Hampshire because it brings a lot of money into the state. And so they want to keep property owners happy, clearly, because the happier the property owners, the more trails that are available for people to use. And so how they control that is by saying, we're not going to reimburse money to the nonprofit snowmobile clubs unless you essentially make sure you have approval. That's what the statute calls for before you go ride on the trails. Yes, sir.
I'm not prepared to make a motion, Bruce, but I would recommend that a fellow select board member who was going to make a motion kind of consider the chicken and egg scenario that you laid out. And so something along the lines that was, I make a motion to grant permission, but their starting a grooming can't happen until the Bureau of Land, accepts the list. Would kind of cover the chicken and egg to the extent that there are three members of the board that want that to go.
And I will tell you the other tidbit that came up is I said, okay, in Bow, especially since COVID, it seems like there's a new house sold every other week. So I asked the Bureau of Trails and I said, hey, so you approved the list, because I had said that I was thinking about making the Snowmobile Club update the list by, say, October 1st every year, because the Bureau of Trails does something by the end of October. And they said, okay, that's good on that day. And I said, all right, so when houses sell in Bow, depending on when the person that sells the house or buys the house or the law firm doing the closing, the town doesn't necessarily know about the closing for 2 to 3 months. So how is the club supposed to know of those changes? So I made a suggestion to the Bureau of Trails that, hey, maybe you guys put on your form you want everybody to use that the person's agreeing to notify the club or the new owner or both that, hey, this is a permission that you need to have for this secondary insurance. And that's when they said, well, we're gonna look at that, but after the winter season. So if somebody sells your house in 3 weeks, and the buyer doesn't record and nothing gets notified to the town for a month or two, they say under their insurance, because they give the insurance company a list once a year, that's it. And it's typically, did they say October, right? They had a date in October where they renew the policy to leave. But it's a secondary liability policy because our state statute in the New Hampshire Supreme Court case law says if you open your land to a trail, you're not liable for anybody getting injured on using that trail. But to entice more people to have trails, they purchase this secondary insurance coverage. So, any other selectmen have comments or questions? Then I would like everybody that's here, if you got something you want to talk, oh, well, I'm gonna back up a little. They're two separate items, but when Kevin called me Friday afternoon, regarding, is Spruce here?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Spruce, I didn't see you over there. He thought that was part of this. And as we said at the last meeting, we did get, we got the legal opinion. Because I believe it was Kevin sent a question into the town. Regarding an opinion to the planning board back in the 80s. Regarding ownership of a trail. And so, as I understand it, David sent that to our council. And I don't know if the board wants to go into non-public to discuss it, but as chair, I can summarize that. Even with the information Kevin sent over, it's still the opinion of council that that section of trail is a class 6 road subject to gates and bars. He did also, I will also say that he said that it's, I believe he said it's likely that the butters could own the underlying fee, but it doesn't change the status of the class 6 road subject to gates and bars. That's where that ended. Kevin, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. It was your request, so we had council look at it, and that's what came back.
I mean, yeah, I have questions. Kevin Buchan, Pinecrest Drive.
You can come up and get a feeling of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd be interested to understand what the basis for that determination is.
It's, I don't want to get into the specifics of the opinion, the board hasn't voted to make the entire opinion public. I'm telling you the conclusion of it. But I'll tell you just from me, I'm not speaking for the board, but just when we reviewed the stuff you sent, I believe, and Spruce will correct me, but I believe it's even a deed because he owns up to the edge of the Londonderry Branch Turnpike right away. And with respect to the 1933 town warrant article you referred to, Kevin, I think the first time you sent us documents, as our lawyer had said, that doesn't specifically say what was given up. In New Hampshire is established that is, if you're going to give up all rights to it, it's specified, and that wasn't. But regardless of that, when the town has open and notorious use of a road such as that for more than 21 years, like anyone else, there's prescriptive rights to it.
Okay.
Supported by, and I can tell you this, I think. Our records indicate that the town has treated it as that for decades, as a town class 6 road and town trail. And Spruce deed says the edge of it. So, and even if, and I'm just talking to myself, even if at the time somebody thought that 33 warrant article somehow gave up all rights to that, it would have gone to the then property owner, which when you provided it, I believe I read Spruce's deed.
Yep.
The owner from back in 1933, if somebody owned it, may own it, but he didn't transfer it to Spruce.
Wow.
Because the deed says he owns to the edge, but, and that's just me, I'm not talking for council, I'm not talking for the board, it's, and if other board members here, right, I don't want anything to read, but
So just a couple of things on that. So as far as prescriptive use, it has to be 20 consecutive years of use as a public way, and that period had to start in January 1st of 1948. So you have to have evidence that it started in January 1st, 1948, ending January 1st, 1968, because in 1968, prescriptive use was removed from law because people were creating roads all over the place, and then the towns became responsible for them. So the prescriptive use doesn't apply after 68. We have this opinion this was an opinion because there was subdividing lots that part of this section of road used to run through. In 1981, the surveyor noted the 1933 warrant article, went to the state. So that's where the state right-of-way division letter comes from that says it's the opinion of the state that Londonderry Branch Turnpike laid out in 1812. It's an easement deed only. The original abutting property owners, their heirs and assigns own the fee title to the land underneath the highway. It's also the opinion of the undersigned that those sections of the old right-of-way that have been formerly abandoned by the towns through which the turnpike passes revert to the abutting property owners at the center line of the original trace. That is from the state in 1981. That was brought to the planning board in 1981 by the surveyor for this subdivision. The town engineer then went to the town council at the time and requested an opinion from the town council saying, you know, we got this surveyor, they're trying to do a subdivision, we need to know what this is. The town council came back with a 3-page letter that's the most clear opinion I've ever read that says the town warrant article in 1933 discontinued the road. It is not the public easement has been extinguished. Furthermore, based on that information, when they subdivided the Scribner subdivision, the road originally ran through lot 46 and lot 46B. Because the town planning board agreed that the road was discontinued and the town council issued that opinion, the owners of those two lots, their deeds actually include rights to the entire right of way for this discontinued road. So you can't have it one way or the other. What happened is when the subdivision was done for Pinecrest, where Spruce's property, and there's actually 11 other properties along that road, the surveyor didn't catch the old survey note that the road was discontinued. They never brought it up. They didn't include it in the drawing. It didn't get put into the approval process. Therefore, it was just simply overlooked. But that doesn't change the fact that the town has actually acknowledged that the road is discontinued. It's fully discontinued because in 1933, that warrant article is written appropriately. It would have had to have been written discontinued subject to gates and bars in the warrant article for it to be subject to gates and bars, which it is not. And the town has already given, based on this opinion, they've already given rights to this discontinued road. So now we have a situation where rights were given in 1981 to these landowners, but other landowners have not received the property back. So I understand Spruce's deed is incorrect. I have read the deed and I understand exactly what you're saying, but we can't have it both ways. Either I need to be able to drive my car down the public way through a driveway and a garage that was built in the right of way on one of these lots because they own it, or the road is discontinued. I mean, it's one or the other. It can't be this part was not discontinued separately from the rest of it. So that's part of the evidence that I provided in the packet to give to town council. So I'm extremely disappointed. The subject to gates and bars, if you write a warrant article today and say the road is discontinued and you don't specify entirely, completely, or some other explicit term, it's assumed that it's discontinued subject to gates and bars. But that is not what the law was in 1933. In 1933, you needed to explicitly say you were discontinuing subject to gates and bars. So the opinion is incorrect. And we have a situation where there's two opposing views. The town has awarded land to landowners correctly in 1981, and now they're withholding land from these other landowners. And after 1981, there's no way to claim prescriptive use to establish a road.
So I'll respectfully disagree. The one answer is you can establish a right of way through prescriptive easements.
No.
Dealing with the case up at Weirs Beach right now from the Superior Court order, and that order came down, I believe, in '88. And it was, so I'm dealing with another case over in Dunbarton with respect to road prescriptive rights, so.
Okay.
Right to access or easements by prescription is law in New Hampshire, so.
The road,
That's my opinion.
the easements for roads, it was removed in 1960. Can't establish a public way by prescription after 1968 unless you have evidence of 20 years of consecutive use before 1968.
If you want to take the fee, but I don't know. I'll respectfully disagree with you. Our council looked at everything you sent over.
Yeah.
He remains of the opinion that it's a class 6 road subject to gates and bars.
So can he explain why the town gave property to 2 property owners and is withholding it from everyone else?
I'll just tell you, he said that the butters may own the underlying fee, but it doesn't affect.
That means they own, no, but explain this to me then. Why were these people given the discontinued road? Why do they have rights to the discontinued road? What you're saying makes no sense. It just doesn't.
No, I'm not town council.
Well, I mean, you're also speaking to your opinion. I'm responding to that, and I'm simply saying 2 lots. The town got this opinion through the right process, through the planning board. They got an opinion from the state. They got an opinion from their attorney at the time. So how does this not set a precedent?
The opinion.
How can we say, so this was wrong, so now we're just gonna do what we want today?
I think what the record shows and what our council saying is that it's to what extent the old Londonderry Branch Turnpike
Yep.
Was given up.
So but they gave it up on these 2 lots.
Well, they gave it up officially in 1936.
No, that's incorrect. The letter from the attorney specifies that it was sold to the town at some point before that. It's wrong. Yeah,
Marshall, I think that the disagreements of the current owner, like, I assume that there's a legal process for someone that wanted to quiet title for a property like this.
Exactly.
That, at this point, our council's kind of tied our hands. If somebody wants to exercise their legal rights, that's what they should do.
Any other comments? Do you have anything else? Kevin?
no, I mean, I was obviously trying to avoid people spending money to get the right answer. I provided all the evidence of the correct answer, so.
We called hire counsel to do exactly the same.
Well, we already hired someone in 1981 and the town awarded land, the town accepted this opinion in 1981. So it's incredibly frustrating.
Your legal analysis is different than our.
It's not, it's just not, it's not circumstantial. It's, it's right here. But
You acknowledge that his deed does not.
yes, the town did not do the additional work at the time that should have been done. I agree with that.
And so there
Town-
may be a title owner of that piece of land.
No.
No, there may be a fee title owner of that piece of land that is not Mr. Wheelock.
So they would have acquired it since 1981 then? Because the attorney right here says that's not the case.
36, if you're right, if you're
No, no.
right.
Did you read the opinion of 1981 of the council?
Yeah.
It says that the town acquired the road prior to 1936 is not when the road was acquired.
But you keep saying that the town said they acquired it in 81. No, what that.
No, I didn't say that. No. The town said that it was discontinued per the 1933 warrant article in 81 and gave the rights to 2 lots that were being subdivided.
So, in 81, when the planning board, asked their council at the time to identify who owned the fee, that was the question.
Okay.
That council in the land doesn't go into, didn't even consider whether any portion of it still remains class 6 subject to gates and bars with somebody owning the underlying fee. That wasn't part of the question. You keep saying the state gave an opinion. The gentleman that wrote the opinion was the state of New Hampshire Department of Transportation Right-of-Way Bureau head, who gave an opinion, his opinion as the DOT as to the status of the Londonderry Branch Turnpike.
Sure.
No consideration as to whether or not it was class 6 subject to gates and bars. It's a whole nother area of law.
Yeah, I mean, this letter from
I just want people to think that that's an opinion from the Attorney General's office, because it wasn't. It was a letter from a right-of-way, head of right-of-way bureau of the Department of Transportation.
I mean, this letter does consider the warrant article and the entire section of discontinued road. It says accordingly, the abutters on each side own the fee title to the center line without encumbrance, the public easement having been extinguished.
Our council disagrees. I wish we were on the same page and agreed, believe me, but
You were like. All right,
So the town has different opinions on the same thing, depending on, every time we change town council. Because town council said, at one point said one thing, and now we have new town council and they're saying the opposite. I mean,
well, I don't think they're saying the opposite.
Or
They're asking two
same.
different questions.
It's a different.
no, it's not a different question.
Well,
It's not.
Respectfully, Kevin, legally it is, and if you
No.
drive down Route 3A, there's a whole section of 3A down in Hooksett that is 3A, but you notice it's much narrower. Because the people on either side own the underlying fee.
But
And
this is,
so the road gets to stay there, but the abutters own the underlying fee. And that's why they didn't widen the state road out all the way, because they didn't want to have to buy up all those houses. Instead, they have the right of way to pass through there because the abutters own the underlying fee. That's the difference in the questions as far as I see it, but. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't ask council for more better explanation, just or you have to engage counsel to exercise your rights.
I mean, this one paragraph says the town of Bow acquired the interest of proprietors from the proprietors in the turnpike. It became vested with an easement of passage only. So to your point, public passage, right? There's no evidence it acquired any greater interest than the proprietors had, which was only a right of passage, not the fee title. The action of the town meeting discontinuing the highway freed the locus of the public easement or servitude. Accordingly, the abutters on each side own the fee title to the center line without encumbrance, the public easement having been extinguished. So I just want to be clear that this letter is speaking exactly to what you're saying. It's not.
I know you think that, but respectfully, I don't see the same. We need it in our council.
so if the town were to hire new council to review this, and that town council gives a different opinion, I mean,
They're simply just saying it's not the same opinion, even though it is, which that's fine. But I mean,
I
it
just want to
is.
try and understand.
That's exactly what they're asking. When we do this subdivision, do these people get rights to the road, or is the road still a road and they don't? That's exactly what the question was being posed. And the decision was they do, because the road was discontinued and there's no public easement. So it was written into those deeds that they were granted rights to that right of way, that section of discontinued road.
The difference.
So that is the question that was asked, and this is the opinion that was given.
I understand what you're saying. Our council advises us differently. I don't know what else to tell you. So at this point, we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
So getting back to the trails, is there anybody that wants to be heard on the whole trail scenario?
Do
Then come right up, please.
I have to sit up there?
Yeah, no, it's better for the microphone, I think it's supposed. Don't forget your name and address.
Yes, aye. My name is Beth Titus, 3 Eastview Drive. If you're on Facebook, you've heard my journey of how I got here. I thought that this was all, I watched this drama. I watched the selectmen's meeting of whatever that was in October. And I don't know if I was the only one, but I was under the impression that all the mea culpas were done and everything that could be done to rectify the situation had been done. And I thought, oh, okay, this is over. So I went to walk after the snowstorm and found the trails weren't groomed. I have an old dog. Snow was knee deep. I could make it through. She can't make that through. So I'm like, wow, I am so used to this. I get it. I'm entitled. I could walk somewhere else. I could walk in the roads, but that is my trail that I've walked on every day for over 10 years. And just like your pond, sorry about your pond and your beavers, but I didn't feel that was a kind answer. So I was so upset. And then I found out that it was because of this list. So I contacted Andy Foote and said, I will help you with that list. And I went to 3 houses. So if you're claiming that that wasn't done, I personally went to 3 houses. Can you see, it was very upsetting to me to do so. I felt like I was a beggar, and afterwards I felt horrible. Like I was begging these people, and it was just one out of 3 was out, not bad. So I am here to say that I will volunteer. I get it. I will volunteer if they will take me to be your liaison for these knuckleheads. And believe me, they have been knuckleheads in this whole process. So I see why you guys are angry. But I'm sorry about the beavers, and a lot of people are. I'm sorry your pond is gone, but there's no way to fix it right now. I mean, you can't fill it back in. I'm sorry. But I've also submitted a request to help on the Conservation Commission Beaver Subcommittee to see if there's any way that I can help to fix that. So someone asked me, are you team snowmobile? Are you team beaver pond? I said, I'm sorry. Are you? No, that's Sandy. That's all right. So I am team Bow, New Hampshire. I want this to be done. I want people to be happy. I hate that we're being divided. I hate that there's secret things going on. And I just want it over. And that's all I've got to say. And if you guys will take me, I will help you every year to update your list. And I will be a liaison between you and the landowners. And sorry, Chris. I can't stop once I get started.
Thank you, Beth.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I was just trying to recognize for after. I wasn't saying anything.
Okay, so if they will take me, I will help them. I will try and keep them to quit making not very nice comments. I don't. So I don't know.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I want this town. You guys probably know, I've lived in this town been a resident forever, grew up here, and it just pains me deeply. And I know there's a lot of other people that this is happening. And I just wanted to go back the way our happy little life for us normal people. Okay, that's all.
Don't take
Oh.
it. Go ahead. Chris.
Well, first off, I don't think this is about mea culpas. I don't think this is about beavers. This is about when they brought to us the permission slip, the meeting you were gone, which is I think mid-December. I'm sorry, first week in January.
Yeah.
And they brought to us the permission slip. It was brought to our attention, and we almost made a vote. I got close to making a motion, and it was brought to our attention there were 40 lots that need to be updated. And we thought, let's not do this. Let's figure out those 40 before we give permission for the town, so that we have, so that basically, and the question I'll have tonight when you're done is, do we have enough to get the groomer around to the town trails? We're going to get around. Even the folks that asked us to consider the 40 names that need to be signed off on seemed generally supportive at that meeting. So this was just about, let's make sure we check off those boxes before we check off the final box. And I really think we're close. Apparently, according to my notes, we got a couple of paths we're going to have to divert around or not be able to get through. But in large part, a lot of this should be done tonight. We're growing as a town, and I think there's a renewed appreciation for some I's and T's that will need to be crossed in this process going forward, both as part of the kind of coalition of property owners and Bow Snowmobile Club, but also the community who is aware. We've all gotten a dozen calls, so thank you. I think when you're the intermediary, it's a wonderful.
And we also get supervisors of the checklist are now the planning board is required to send us property transfers every month. So I would have access to that information, and I did check, it is public record, so I am allowed to share that. So that will help help them keep it updated.
The other wrinkle we identified today is since early 2000s, Bow has done subdivisions where they make it a condition of the subdivision that when they transfer deeds, that the trail is shown on there and can be used 365 days a year. So when we brought that to the attention of the Bureau of Trails, there was a pause because I guess not many towns do that. So out of abundance of caution, at some point, they would like to see in the records of the Bow Pioneers, copies of the deeds and subdivisions that have that as part of it. So that if a new owner comes and says, oh, I don't want to see snowmobiles anymore, they can show, here's the deed, your deed that says it's part of the subdivision. So
I think
that's
that's-
very cool. But I was, and Mike, I'm sure will speak, but I was very happy that the Florida Trails is trying hard, because their number one priority is public relations with landowners. And they found, based on some complaints they had, certain comments on Facebook unacceptable. Mike and I agreed with that 100%. And that's why we asked them to include that ethics clause they have, because we don't want the Bureau of Trails in the state to cut off funds to a nonprofit that maintains our trails, because they do most of the trail maintenance. And because if that's cut off, no one's maintaining the trails.
And everybody suffers.
There's not.
Yeah, I know.
any maintenance.
I saw these guys clearing a huge blowdown on Knox Road. I was so thankful because we could barely get through there. So that was nice.
But thank you so much
You're welcome.
for stepping up. and
Oh, no, no.
Helping out, because Mike and I see the public relations problems and the dangers of shoot from the hip comments on Facebook.
Yeah, got that.
I glance at it now and then until my blood pressure gets too high, and then
Same, same. I'm very obsessive. I tried to answer every comment and think before I talked when I posted, and I just had to give up. It was exhausting.
Thank you for volunteering.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
You are one of several who have volunteered to help. Others have been turned away,
Oh,
who have offered their,
you can turn me away. It won't hurt my feelings.
yeah, putting it out. Other people have volunteered to help
Okay.
with this list and.
You know, Chris brought up a point, and I'm wondering if we can get that answered. Really? Guys. If we can get that answered, if we open the town property, can you get to all the town property with the current landowner permissions?
Yes.
That's just one thing I want to clarify. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Please state, you
Hi, I'm okay here.
don't you state your name and address for the.
Yeah. Thank you. Kimberly Bacher, 19 Heidi Lane.
I came by to see you today with mine.
Somebody chicken warriors.
I know I come and I go, hey, you goes, I'm cutting it up, I'm getting ready for the grill, but we were too early.
Thank you for.
No, we went over after we were at the Bureau of Trails, because you and I had walked your property.
Yes.
And we had gotten your email about the damage to the trees, which we tried to explain to your husband that that's still, if there's damage to the trees, you can work with a club to get that
Oh, I-
smaller groomer.
I just got back from work. I didn't even.
Oh.
That was not even communicated to me. Okay, I appreciate that
We had told them that.
right now. 'cause I didn't hear it from him.
I didn't mean to get him in trouble, I'm sorry. We explained that the pioneers have liability coverage for
Okay.
property damage, which would include trees, so.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. I just have two quick comments.
Yep.
Is that landowner list gonna be made public? So that we can cross-check it?
What Mike and I have asked, but I assume if there's any kind of motion tonight, I was gonna ask that be a requirement that list be provided October 1st or sooner, whatever the board think, every year to Dave Stack. So now it's a town record, and I think we should post it on our
I think
website
it'd be really helpful so we can just.
along with the map, so that you can go to our website. And Angela's been heading up a committee or group to try to improve our website even more. But I think that's something that's perfect on there. So you go to our website and look at the trail system and know exactly what landowners have approved and or
Right.
disapproved. So that's not a rule yet. If there's a motion tonight, I'm just telling you personally, that's what I was gonna try to add to it.
I'll
That
make
we
a
get that
motion.
list and it gets, well, she has second.
And just one more other comment, I appreciate that the grooming will be done, but as I have said before, when I authorize use of my property, which I'm not intending to rescind. I don't want that groomer coming through my property.
Yeah.
Every single time it comes, whether it's user error or the groomer doesn't fit, it damages the trees.
Right.
Please do not take the groomer through my property. I have put that in writing several times. I don't want to rescind authority to use my property. I'm fine with it. I just don't want the groomer damaging the trees. I don't think it's that much, that unreasonable of a request.
No, I think it's,
And so if the town grants permission, I want to make sure that I'm at least taking the position that regardless of what the town says, you don't trump my permission, you don't have to access my property. I just
The
want to
town-
get it there.
To be clear, the town commission only has to do with town-owned land.
Perfect.
But we talked to your husband and he told us, you had the agreement that they could use the snowmobile with the drag behind it, because that doesn't.
Yes, we have no problem with that. We've authorized that, no problem.
So-
But that giant machine coming through damaging trees and everything,
Yeah,
no thanks, not allowed.
I heard you, we
Thank
spoke to
you.
your husband about that
Appreciate
today
that.
to make sure.
We don't have to leave.
I appreciate that, but I'm kind of beating my head against the wall because I thought I gave notice multiple times in writing and it's just not being respected. So people have comments about everything, and if they hear that people take away trail access, that's why.
Well, we can make that a condition to our approval of town land, that they have to adhere to the private landowner's request for the small agreement. Right, but I'm,
One would like to think,
Well,
without you having to go shut down the trail, right?
yes, that's not my intention.
well, if there's ever a problem, send Dave a message if you don't get satisfaction from the pioneers, but you should go to them first.
With all due respect, I've done it before and I've gotten no response.
I understand that. I think that's going to change.
Okay, good.
I hope it, I
You
think.
got email back.
No, I think it's going to change. Yes.
More importantly, I feel like
We want to move forward from this.
I think we all agree.
Yes, so let's resolve this, move forward, get people out there on that.
You have your hand up, sir. I thought somebody raised their hand over there. Did you see anybody? Oh, Kevin, sure.
Kevin McCann, 5 Pinecrest Drive. I just wanted to say at the meeting, I believe what you see on Facebook, a majority of the Beaver people, so to speak, are not from that neighborhood, have nothing to do with the situation, have no knowledge of what actually has happened, hasn't happened, what's gone on.
Exactly,
The majority of us have remained quiet because we
exactly.
don't
And
want
that,
to engage in to feed into that. So I hate to have to make that statement. I'm not gonna put it on Facebook, but I just simply want to share with the meeting that I would imagine 98% of the people that are being labeled as the Beaver people really have nothing to do with what's that.
Well, the Bureau of Trails says they get inundated with email from people who live in Massachusetts. All over the place concerning trails.
We brought that up with the Bureau of Trails today, Kevin, that exact point, because I had gone on to look at it, because I made the mistake of letting my 11-year-old look at the community page thinking she could learn about community. It became very upset. And I looked on there and I saw one name, and I believe he used to work in Bow at one point, but lives in Concord. And I thought it was amazing that about a month and a half ago, I had to ask the state and the town, city of Concord, to remove 2 beaver dams, much larger than when we're talking about, because it was flooding the client's property. They all got removed, and the beaver were trapped and taken away, and that same gentleman from Concord on no post. And I thought it was, to me, I'm old school. It's try to get along, but I think it's just wrong for somebody outside the town trying to instigate garbage in our town. Maybe they're jealous of Bow, because Bow has a history. I'm a rookie. I've only been here 32, 33 years. But it's always been, I mean, I miss just telling somebody we're talking about this beaver dam. The worst part about the high school, they took away the dump. Because you used to go there on Saturday morning, extra coffees, you had a place to pull over, and that's where everybody chatted and talked about neighbors all over town. And everybody says, well, there's Facebook, but Facebook ain't cutting it.
Bruce, if there are no more public comments, I'll make 3 different motions.
I would just like to add one thing.
Well, Beth had her hand up again.
no, I'm not gonna say anything. It's better to shut up.
The Snowmobile Club has volunteered their services to groom the sliding hill when needed. So I'd like to give them permission to do that.
The only issue is I don't know how they get there because they can't go through.
Right, well, they have to trail.
You can go up the road, can't the road?
So.
That's not a good idea. We don't.
So with that, Chris,
All right, I'm gonna make the first motion. I'd like to make a motion that annually we make the list of citizens in Bow that have granted access to the Snowmobile Club public after we receive it.
Second,
Any discussion on that?
after approval from,
Well, we don't need, this could exist without us. So I think once they produce a list to us that is the town residents that approved it, whether the town approved it or not, it would be the list of snowmobile trails, I think.
Right.
Whoever they're purporting to have approved list, we make public either our website or with a link so that people can see and so they can thank them, to say thank you for letting us go through your property. So
I think that would cost a huge.
it's numbers, anyway.
One friendly amendment is the list accompanied with the updated map. That's, they have to send those two things to the Bureau of Trails.
Oh, I accept that.
Will the town be looking to the town officially, like David? I mean, looking to confirm that this list is accurate before it goes public?
I was kind of hoping that making it public shines a light on the process. The world would figure that out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
I don't belong here. I'm David Murray from Concord, but I'm formerly the Merrimack County Director for New Hampshire Snowmobile Association. So I represented Bow as well as 12 other clubs in Merrimack County. And the important piece that you may want to check with could be with the Bureau of Trails regarding the publication or making public landowner lists to the general public, though it's attainable information, but you might want to double check with the Trails Bureau as well as the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association office, because there are 108 other clubs in New Hampshire. And if this has been tried before and failed miserably with people's, whatever could have happened to the negative, the last thing we want to do is make life a living hell for somebody who's pissed off about a beaver somewhere, because you're allowing them nasty people on our property and you happen to allow those people. So now we hate you. Okay. And so I guess I'd be real careful how you wade into this pool. And I would, I can't speak more than just making the recommendation that I'd follow up first with the Bureau of Trails and second with the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association and say, are we shooting ourselves in the foot with this?
And I will say that, the leadership of the club has hurled slanderous accusations towards individuals and neighborhoods and really put targets on the backs of these individuals for harassment and threats. And I recognize that you had that discussion with the Bureau of Trails and there is an ethics clause that they must adhere to, but I think it's important that the town do due diligence to confirm that these folks on this list are agreeing to access, and that we're not further targeting individuals who are not deserving of the kind of harassment they have been subjected to.
So two things. With the Bureau of Trails, they brought in the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association. And they are reviewing the complaints regarding Facebook posts, really on both sides. The Bow Pioneers are still in danger of losing all funds, which means none of our trails will be maintained with funds from the state anymore. So that's something that we were told they're still in the process of. We did make it, Mike and I, clear, not speaking for the board, but as two selectmen from the board, that we weren't going to stand for that. What we did find out from the board is they have their process and they have their audit system. And I don't think it's right for us to run the danger of screwing that up. At some point, how they explain to us it works, they get the list. If there's a complaint, say next year or even in March, they investigate that, go back the list. And because of everything over the last couple months, they don't forget what's transpired in the complaints they have. We would still be for the rest of the year running the risk of losing all funds for our trail maintenance. They did, and that's why I said at the beginning, in a way, you know, this has been, it's tough to watch your neighbors, you know, go at each other, just, and then it's not good for the kids either to know that's going on. But this, on a good note, for the Bureau of Trails, it's opened their eyes, because Bow's not alone, the Bow Pioneers aren't alone in this about, they used to get verbal approval, oh, we got your verbal approval, great. And then now that this has come up, and Bureau of Trails told us really since COVID, because we had a lot of people come up from areas that weren't historically snowmobile or winter sport related, and those people are a bigger percentage now, and so they're getting a lot of complaints about the process and everything, so they're looking at that to improve it. And Mike and I gave some suggestions based on comments we received from people. And I appreciate the emails. I appreciated your email. And that's why I had to wait till I talked to Bureau of Trails to come talk to you and talk to your husband today. But that communication, Mike brought it up at the meeting. Was that?
Can we still have a motion on the floor, guys?
I know, but I'm trying to address Angela's question. So give me a minute, please.
No problem.
As part of that, we went through the Bureau of Trails, the forms. And so we asked them to send us the 3 forms that they use for this, and they're gonna take comments from us on what maybe they'll add on it next year. But those forms, to me, are very clear. And again, I want the trails to stay maintained. I would think the Pioneers wanted to be maintained, but the message was clear from the Bureau of Trails. Any more of this, use a technical term, crap on Facebook is gonna stop, or we're gonna lose funding.
And even towards people that are not on the trail system, that wouldn't be on this list.
Yeah.
That is also,
Bureau of Trails made it clear that it's not just landowners that like a trail to go over, but the Bureau of Trails see it, at least as I understood it, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, that their public relations extends beyond the borders of the state. And so there's a lot of people that there was this. I'll cut off so Matt doesn't get too frustrated, but there was Bureau of Trails told us about a recent case, and I don't know which town, where a snowmobile trails, it wasn't a snowmobile, it was an ATV, got injured on I think the press.
Some people got killed.
And so they were protected by statute. The only issue is the landowner had a logger there at the time doing some logging. Logger wasn't the owner. So they sued the logging company because property owners are immune from suit by statute because they're going to use a trail. And that settled without trial. But so up north, a lot of our trails are on logging properties. And now they're considering whether or not we can even have those trails anymore because of this lawsuit. So I imagine the legislature, some new state reps, I'm sure is going to jump right on this to try to find that chunk of the law so we don't get the logging companies trail access. All right, man, I'll shut up now. Anything else, Angela, before we on the motion?
remind me of the motion.
It's a motion that the town make the public list of property owners in Bow available each year when we get it, and it's submitted to the Bureau of Trails. And we can do that via a link to their website if it's available there.
Yep.
But just so the people in the town can have the light of day and transparency and make sure that the list represents what we understand the world to be.
And Chris, I take your comment, heed your comment here. Can we double check with the contingent upon checking with the Snowmobile Association that this is not going to create a problem for us?
It's a public list, Matt. And
So
whether or not the Snowmobile Association wants it to be public, I don't care. They provided us a list that missed 40 people this year. Penance for that is we're gonna show the people the list until we get it verified that it's right.
And Matt, to your concern, when we met with Bureau of Trails, they commented that because they're a little behind on things, that they're overwhelmed as a regular basis with right to know requests for every single piece of paper they deal with over there. So I'm not concerned about it upsetting them that they get part of, because they emphasized to Mike and I after he brought it up, more communication with the landowner. So I think that's the best way to communicate. Here's a list. If you're on it, you don't want to be on it, let us know.
Can our list show when the landowners were last contacted by whom and how long the approval is for?
That's on the form that you fill out on every property.
Yeah, so we can, if we had
Would that be part of this list that would be public?
not a part of the list, but we could ask for it. So like if you had a question about a property, you could ask for the paperwork that says it.
Which is, they don't, the state doesn't collect that paperwork.
No, we would ask for it from the pioneers. So if you had a property or something that people are concerned, you can just say, hey, show me those.
Yeah.
If
And
you'll allow me, I'll make
they're
this.
required to have a record for 7 years.
Yes.
Bruce,
Not yet, I want.
if the board will allow me, I'll make that as a fourth motion that we request to approve this.
So the first motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First motion passes.
Second motion is I'd like the select board to send a letter, authorize David to sign it. To the Bow Snowmobile Club, reminding them that they have an obligation not to use their big groomer at 1990 Lane. And that whatever the nomenclature is for tow behind is okay.
Yeah.
And that if we're made aware that they're not complying with our reminder of the property owner's request, that we may remove our approvals, use any town trucks.
And you guys are gonna second it, second.
Any discussion on that motion?
If there are other properties where the trail is too narrow for the giant groomer and other landowners have an issue with it, how do they go about bringing it up?
1990 Lane doesn't need us to send the Bow Snowmobile Club a letter. But if the Bow Snowmobile Club accepts that letter and doesn't comply, we're making it pretty clear that we're expecting it as part of our condition.
As I understood your motion, that if they get permission to go on a private property, landowner's property, and they violate a condition of that permission, then we can address it accordingly, even if it's removed.
Whether it's in the sign or not.
Yeah. Anything else, Jason? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's 5-0.
Finally, I'd like, or third, I'm sorry, I'd like to require the Snowmobile Club to provide a complete spreadsheet using the Bureau of Land Management's form, which includes when the property owner was, all of the columns filled out, including but not limited to, when they talked to the property owner, how long it was granted for, whether it was verbal or written, so that we have all of that updated information each year.
So, and just before you go there, that's not what they require.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the.
So they require snowmobile clubs to keep, and there's 3 different forms they talked to us about.
Okay,
Keep those forms on file at Bow Pioneers or Pittsburgh Trailblazers, whatever, for 7 years. So when the Bureau of Trails wants to do an audit, they go to the snowmobile club and say, show us all the paperwork. So that's not a,
that's not it. So
they don't
before
send that
the columns that we were referring to earlier.
They showed us the form online. It is an Excel spreadsheet and there are additional columns.
Yeah.
Landowner permission, yes, no. Verbal, yes, no.
right?
Verbal or written.
Yes.
So-
I don't, he didn't email the forms yet. Yes.
No, but so you're gonna comply with those forms that if they posted online is the sanction form.
Yes. Well, that's already a requirement. They have to have those.
Are we allowed to require as part of the list that we expect to publish that information? Can we require that our list that we're sharing with the public includes when people were contacted, what the, whether it was written or verbal, and how long this permission is for? But those are important things for keeping the list honest.
Those were, I don't remember if those, all those columns were on that Excel spreadsheet. But the form, the landowner, tax ID,
Yep.
property,
Right.
verbal or written,
Those are,
and
for-
how long?
yeah,
Yeah.
those will have to be,
So we had that.
yeah.
Okay, nobody seconded my motion.
Oh.
So can I? Please.
With the third motion you made? Pretty sure he did.
You're looking
I
to add those 3 columns,
Yes.
so that's a friendly.
You know what, you're right, I didn't, he chimed in and said he wanted to correct in this motion.
I'd like to amend my motion to make it clear that the information that the Bow Snowmobile Club provide to the town include, but not be limited to, when the owner granted permission, the owner's name, tax ID number, whether it was verbal or written, for how long.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I assume you meant annually, right?
With the.
Your first motion, yes.
And finally, I'd like to make a motion, grant permission to the Bow Pioneers Snowmobile Club to use town-owned property currently in the snowmobile clubs that they can access. Not school property, we don't have permission for that. For a term of 1 year.
Second.
Can you add to that, that they would have permission to email that approval to the Board of Trails tomorrow, that we did that because they want a writing of some sort from the select.
I would accept that. Mr. Bennett.
Oh, this is a comment. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Franklin, 3 Pinecrest. I'm just curious, if there comes to light, that there's a situation similar to what we had this year, where Bow Pioneer Club without authority does culverting of streams or removal of boulders, things like that, they're not been approved to do, that there's some kind of oversight and consequence for that action.
A great question, and that's why we granted 1 year. So we could do 1, 3, 5, or forever. And I think given where we are today, I've got about 1 year of approval time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that subject to, that can be revoked at any time if an issue were to come up? Is that what?
The form actually says that right in it. I think it says, I believe it says 30 days notice. The state mandate.
If there were any issues that
Any at
came
all.
up, whether it was on town property or beyond?
It actually doesn't require cause,
Okay.
just notice. of-
We could shut it down for whatever reason.
I just want to make sure that that's.
Yeah.
And
Any
no,
violation.
Matt didn't second my amendment, by the way.
I will second the amendment.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. I have one motion. Although I was not at the meeting from January 10th. When I watched the video that somebody posted on Facebook, there was discussion about somebody made a complaint that someone illegally cut a trail or an access, a short trail on town land.
Yes.
And so I make a motion that until we determine if it's town land or not, that little chunk of trail be closed.
And that is somewhere between.
Lane.
Lane.
Yes, sir.
Just Place 25 Heidi Lane. Yeah, it's directly behind my house.
All right.
It definitely goes right through.
So I would make a motion that be closed until we have a chance to assess whose property is on and whether or not it's town property, but I don't think it should be used until we determine that because we have no record of any town approval for that.
I'll second that first.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed?
Grant permission to groom the,
Oh, I thought you were going to make the motion.
make a motion that we give the Bow Pioneers permission to groom the sledding hill.
Wait, we have a comment.
I have a question on that though.
Yeah.
Would they have needed?
You gotta state your.
Oh, David Farr, Heidi Lane.
Sorry, Dave.
That's right, Dave Farr, Heidi Lane. Your favorite Facebook post, sure. Working on it, it's like smoking.
Nah, you're not.
I left for 8 weeks before I came back.
Middle of the pack.
I guess my question is, have they had that approval in the past?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And so I'd just like to put down,
But actually, it's just.
just to the point that, obviously I have my own issues with the way they've acted the last 6 months, but it's just interesting to me that with everything that's going on, they dragged that thing out to the sledding hill on town land and then advertised what a great thing they did.
And I think your trees were, your trees were damaged
I
recently.
made it clear that no one was authorized to use my property until the landowner list was updated. I made that very clear to everyone involved. Yet despite that, he came through with the groomer, damaged the trees to get to the sledding hill and, oh, we're so great. I'm sorry, people are enjoying the sledding hill, but don't damage my trees, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I've never had one groomed. I don't know the necessity for grooming a sledding hill. Yeah.
But I guess I just want to make a point to the board that I appreciate we're all trying to move forward and mend fences, and I agree, it's a huge loss. I feel for Beth. Actually, I feel only for Beth. But I guess there is a part of me that's just shocked that we're continuing to work with an organization that has shown nothing but entitlement and no respect for anybody in town. So it's interesting to hear that motion when they've already done it and did it in such a way that it already pissed off about the neighbors, so.
Can I say something? If their PR spokesman, I will tell him to his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to move away from that. Can we just move away from that?
Yes.
We need to move forward.
Yeah, we just need to move on.
I don't think,
Nobody seconded his motion.
we don't need to do this now. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Now, is there, apologize,
So there's no authority for the club to groom the sledding house.
correct.
Great, thank you.
Now, we're gonna go into non-public. You can't stick around, be a roll call vote, but thank you all for your patience. Thank you
Can
for
I
coming out.
address one other thing?
But I do wanna know when to come get the chicken.
Wow.
Can I just say, there have been, there's been abhorrent behavior, and I'm glad that we're going to be moving forward. It just, we can't have that behavior. We can't. And we really all need to acknowledge how awful it has been. And frankly, I would like to hear an apology publicly from the pioneers to these residents who have been subjected to terrible consequences for actions they really didn't take. You know, I want to hear an apology. I don't think that is outrageous to ask that, but there have been individuals targeted, neighborhoods targeted, and accused of things they did not say and did not do. And I think to move forward, they should hear an apology.
No, and I think that at least as far as Facebook goes, there's been some things on there that I think in hindsight, were extremely poor choice and require apology. I mean, with the whole Beaver thing, what my wife and kids went through because I have a new chairman. Said that I knew we were moving the dam because that's what I said at the prior meeting. I don't think the reaction that came back on my wife and kids should have been there, but I don't expect an apology to ever come. But I agree with respect to moving forward and trying to smooth things over. I think it's a great, if but for anything, an extension of all of the branches, somebody apologize for on behalf of the pioneers for some of the stuff that's transpired. So, but I'll leave that up to them. That's what they want to do. I think that goes a long way to smooth things over in the future. I'll leave that up. My own personal thing. Any other selectmen, anything to say?
No, motion moving to RSA 91A32, what is it, employee appointment?
Yeah, it's a roll call vote.
Thanks for coming.
Roll call vote for what you voted. Aye. Thanks for watching at home, but we're gonna shut this off.
What was unbelievable?
That even